All right. Welcome to Collective Conversations, mini podcast where healing truth and real conversations meet. I'm your host, JoyNettie, and today I have a special guest. So, this is a special episode for me. I'm honored to welcome Leah Abraham to the stage with me today as my first sacred guest of Collective Conversations. So, thank you so much for being here with me, Leah. Um,
Yes, absolutely,
be-
Nettie.
Before
I'm
I
excited.
begin, yes, me too. Thank you. I'd like for you to just introduce yourself before I jump into everything that I'd like to say about you first.
Sure. So, my name is Leah Abraham, and I have been doing this work, meaning having these conversations around trauma and abuse, and specifically sexual abuse. I've been doing this now for going on 6 years, and it's really important to me to have these safe spaces where we can come together and talk about things that are not widely and openly talked about, that there's still a lot of stigma around. But it's getting to the root of the challenges that we face and our ability to navigate those challenges. So it's really important for me to have these conversations and help people make that connection between what's going on in their lives now as adults and how it ties to the events that took place in their childhood, the experiences that they had in their childhood. So that's what I do. I hold a space every Thursday called Trauma Drama, where we come together and we have those types of conversations. I also have a class that I teach. It's called the 5-step healing process. I do that about once or twice every year, and that's a process that I created based off of my own healing journey, what I've learned through these 15 years of being on a healing journey, and what I've learned from working with other people and kind of seeing what the healing journey looks like. I have created that 5-step healing process as a way to remove the fear out of the healing journey and really help bring that clarity and understanding around how our childhood experiences do impact the way we show up as adults. So that's what I do. That's who I am. And thank you so much for having me as your first
Oh my gosh,
guest.
thank you. Thank you so much. So Leah, before I jump right in and start with questions and things like that, I would love to give you your flowers. Um, this is this is something very, very special for me. I'm gonna try my best. I have my tissue. I'm gonna try my best not to cry through it.
I was
Um,
like, before we start, you want to make me cry. Okay, all right.
like, here we go. I feel it. I'm like, calm down. So you know, Leah, I met you in a time of my life where I was just starting to journey out and seek healing and go into healing and things like that. I decided that I wanted to be a trauma coach at that time. And I was looking for all of these different spaces that I could join and things like that. And a little while into that, I kind of realized like, I don't think I want to do trauma coaching. I just felt like it wasn't for me as far as me being such a empath where I soak up
Mhm.
so many different emotions and other people's emotions and things like that. I felt like it was a little too heavy for me at that time. But I still was able to find these beautiful spaces. And when I found your space, Trauma Drama on Clubhouse, man, I feel it was so divinely aligned, right? I have something here that I prepared because I wanted to prepare it because I know if I get too emotional, it's not going to come out right. So, um, so I want to just let you know, Leah, being my first guest is so divinely aligned for me. It's almost poetic in a way,
Mhm.
and I want you to know from me that you didn't just support my healing, um, you helped midwife my voice.
Mhm.
you know, of course you deserve to get your flowers for that. And of course, the world, I feel, needs to know and meet the woman behind the safe space that helped birth my new voice for me and help me step into really who I am today. You know, when I came into your space and I saw how nurturing you were, how kind you were, how caring you were. I just felt so safe, and I remember being down at the bottom, and not really coming up to the stage yet. I kind of wanted to hear what how things were going and things like that. Coming from sexual abuse, trauma, you don't well, I know for me, I didn't really trust many people, and I built up a wall of who I really opened up trust to. Um, Being in that space with you really helped me free my voice. I was able to come up to the stage and talk to you and share just tender moments of my traumas that I never thought that I would share with anybody else. I mean, so many people in my life didn't had no idea about this. I was able to hide it so very well. Um, and when I came into this space with you, I mean, I know it was divinely led. I know that you freed me in a way that I could not have done alone, and that I would have never imagined. Honestly, I wanna share a piece of my childhood. When I was a child, I went through a lot of abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, also a lot of abandonment issues and things like that, being taken out of a home, being placed here, being placed there, being placed back with my family, and through all of that trauma, I developed something where I stopped speaking. I didn't speak. I didn't have a voice anymore. I mean, I could talk, but I just didn't. And it had to be something that had to do with the trauma that I experienced. And for years, I grew up as an adult, a teenager. I would have conversation, but very minimal, very minimal. I wouldn't say much. A lot of people would say, "Man, you never say anything," or you just laugh. You laugh at everything. And I think that the laughter in me was like that defense of just I'm going to defend myself in laughter. And I can remember having relationships where guys would tell me like, "Well, you never even told me how you feel," or "You never speak to me about it," or anything. I just never did. It carried on into like my adult life. Um, and I realized that that was a real issue for me um, as I started to get older and I started to get into certain relationships, jobs, everything, any area in my life, it affected me. Um, you opened me up in a way that I never could have imagined, truly. Um, Here it comes. um, I mean, truly, I never ever thought that one day I would be able to sit in front of people, tell my story, tell my truth. You allowed me to be vulnerable. And that is such a superpower for me today. It's such a gift for me that I can be this now. Because being vulnerable was never a thing for me. It was always to wear that mask and keep that mask on and not let people know what was going on with me. But it was so much of a it was eating me inside, and I feel like you helped me free that. You know, I know that we do have to do the work for ourselves, and we do have to do a lot of that inner healing and things like that. But I am so convinced, and I know this with all of my heart, you can't do that alone. You need people like you that hold these spaces and hold people's hearts the way that you do. I mean, I know you're such a great mom, but you're so nurturing with everyone that you come across, and I just love that about you. I feel like, my goodness, Leah to me feels like my sister that always has my back. right? And I don't have any sisters, but I have chosen family now, right? So I feel like that energy from you, you know. So I really truly wanted you to know with the everything that I evolve and do and use my voice for, that has such a foundation that started with you. And I am forever grateful for you. I truly
Thank
am. Oh
you.
gosh. I'm sorry. I'm like trying not to cry,
No, that
but
it's so
it's
beautiful. Thank you.
it's the truth. And I just want the world to know that, you know, and I want the world to know about you. And I want the world to know when they see me, I'm a reflection of so many great people that has come into my life. And you are a part of that. And I feel, you know, people should know that you don't just one day wake up and say, yep, I'm on the healing journey and I'm good and I'm doing it and I'm all, you know, it doesn't really work that way. um, there's many steps and I'm blessed to have you be a part of that, you know. So with all of that being said, I am so grateful for you. And that's what this podcast is about. And that is why I wanted you to be my first guest because I feel like you've helped me clear up that throat chakra. um, you know, I was able to free that, and it started with you, and I'm grateful for that because you held me in such a way that I feel that I'm not sure if you knew, but I want you to know. I want you to know. So
Thank you.
thank you, Leah. Thank you so much
Oh
from
my
the bottom of
gosh.
my
What a beautiful introduction, and what an
heart.
honor to hold that place in your journey. Like, I don't take it lightly. And the story you shared is very similar to most of our stories. When those things happen to us in childhood, for one, we don't have the words to explain
Mhm.
what has happened.
Yes.
So that's where the silence begins. Then if we are able to tell it to somebody or say something, very likely we're shut down. So
Mhm.
that's the second thing that silences our voice. And then we learn over time that our safety comes from being silent. And so we put on the mask, and as you were speaking, I'm thinking of those masks that have no mouth. It's the masks
Mm.
that you're just seeing the face, but there's no way to speak. So that's the mask that we wear, the mask of silence, and that one that looks right on the outside so that nobody questions anything and they think everything's fine. But on the inside,
Mhm.
everything is breaking down because it's
My goodness, yes.
unsustainable to it's unsustainable to go through life without our voice. And
Mm.
like you said, when we learn to be silent, when we learn that our safety comes from silence, we're silent we're silent everywhere. We're silent
Mhm.
at work, we're silent in relationships, we're silent in friendships. We don't speak up for ourselves, we don't know how to ask for what we need. And so it can be very inhibiting. Something that did keep us relatively safe in childhood is now no longer helpful. And so we get to that point where we need to learn how to reconnect and clear up the throat chakra and speak up for ourselves and to tell our
Mhm.
story. And that leads to so much more. And it's beautiful to have watched where you came from and where you are now doing a podcast. Like,
Yes.
podcast is all about the voice and speaking and telling your
Mhm.
story and having these conversations. And so it's really beautiful to see how you've blossomed as a result of learning to learning to allow yourself to speak. And it's such an honor that I could be the person to hold that space for you, where you felt safe enough to try, where you felt safe enough to try again, and where you felt heard. So
Yes.
it's such a
Yes.
deep honor and such a beautiful a beautiful process, and I'm
Thank
grateful
you.
that we've got to on this journey together
Yes.
because I too have unlocked more of my throat chakra as a result of being able to have these conversations and to know I'm not alone. Like a big piece of that for me, and as I listen to other people share their story, is the fear of being shamed. So
Mm,
this happened to me, and now I'm tainted, or I used to think people would think I was gross or weird, and so that kept me silent. But when you find spaces that are safe and where other people are sharing their story, it's the opposite. You receive love and understanding, and you're not alone anymore. And then it does turn into that superpower, the thing that held us down and kept us small. When we do allow ourselves to speak about it and to begin processing and healing it, it transmutes into a superpower. So it's wonderful to see
yes.
that
Yes.
happen.
I agree. And also just one more thing about that. Um, Feeling like no one's going to believe you is
Mm,
so, my goodness, that was such a fear of mine. If I say something, who is going to believe me? Um, who's going to really believe what I'm going to say, And gosh, I'm telling
be
you,
on
that
my side.
is
Who's
all
gonna
of the
be on my
things that you
side?
gave me. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm just so grateful. I really, really am. So I mean, I could sit here for hours and talk about that. But I
We
really
can.
want to shed I really want to shed light on you you know, but of course I wanted to give you your flowers and let you know how grateful I am because I I I speak in so many different spaces now. And
Yes.
I think back of gosh, where did that come from? I was speaking to one of us, a guy that I used to date a few years ago, and he said to me, he goes, "You're not shy anymore." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I think I am still very shy. I'm just it's an evolved version of me now, where
Yes.
I'm able to speak up for myself, where that was something I thought I never could do, and I'm able to be truthful, and I'm able to be vulnerable, and so when I think of that, it takes me back to where did this begin? And it began in trauma drama, and I'm grateful. I am super grateful. So
That makes me
that's
so
gonna lead
happy.
me to my first question. I have some notes here that I have. Um, but before we really dive in, I'd love for you to share what does creating safe space truly mean to you beyond the buzzword? So many people throw around that buzzword now of safe space, safe space, safe space, but I'd like to know what that truly means to you.
Yeah. I think a safe I've learned to bring these two terms together, safe and brave. So a safe, brave space looks like somewhere where we're all showing up as our true self, where you can take off that mask that you've been wearing and just the show up where you are, as you are, who you are in that moment. In trauma drama, I read at the beginning of every Thursday class, I read this introduction, and in that introduction it says, we leave all judgments behind, judgment for others, but especially for ourselves. So that's a big thing, is coming into a space where we can share, and it's going to stay there without judgment, and if we do have that judgment for ourselves, because sometimes that's hard to release, that we meet it with compassion, that we meet ourselves with compassion. One thing I've learned about these safe, brave spaces is that there is a great power in being witnessed. You know, when we say something and there's a group of people who are listening to us and essentially like taking in what we've said, there's a great power in that. And it moves us along our healing journey in a way that we can't do alone. Like you were saying, the processing is done internally. That's something only we can do for our own selves. But that sense of community and being with other people who can witness you in that healing process is very, very powerful. So it's about finding those places where there are like-minded individuals. We find each other, we gravitate toward each other. I mean, we've watched that. You know, there are certain people who will come in and maybe come for one or two times and then, you know, they do their own thing, but there are those who stay and become like our soul family. So you find each other and you find the right people, the right places, the right conversations based on where you're at and the things that you've been through and what you value. And so safe, brave spaces to me is coming together with no judgment, with the intention of healing, the intention of honoring each person as their individual self, but knowing we're all connected. um, you know, another part of that introduction into trauma drama is that I say we are all wearing these metaphoric glasses, these glasses that were crafted from our traumas and focused into our unique lens of perspective and adjusted as we begin to heal and see with new clarity. So remembering too that we're all looking at life and moving through life from our own unique perspective based on our experiences, based on the people in our lives, based on where we grew up. So that unique perspective is to be honored. You know, when someone has a different perspective, we can learn something from them. It may help us shift our perspective. So honoring that unique perspective that everybody brings in and opening yourself up to what you can learn in a space. Because I have seen time and time again when people do share, other people will connect parts of their own story or, you know, color in more of their own picture and begin to see their own situation with new clarity based off of what someone else said. So there's a
Mhm.
lot of beautiful things that happen when we come together in those safe, brave spaces. And for me, really, it's about the intention, showing up with the intention to care for other human beings, to care for each other, you know. And um you know, releasing that judgment is a big part of the safety, you know. And
Mhm.
um you know, and then in trauma drama, I always take those deep breaths, you know, after
Yes,
someone shares
my
with
favorite
me. We'll
part.
take 3 breaths, yes. And those 3 breaths are meant to honor that person for using their voice and sharing their story. It's meant to connect us all together as we process what's been shared, and then it's to ground us back into where we are, that present moment, before we continue with the conversation. So it's really important to make sure that when we're in those spaces, we're practicing being there, that we're fully there and listening and being together and being witnessed. You know, if the mind is somewhere else thinking about something else, we're not gonna be able to give into the space or receive in the space like we can if we're fully present. So I really try to bring that into the spaces that I create as well, like trying to help people be there and only there, so that they're able to take in and receive what's being put into the space, and also so that they can give into the space. So yeah, a safe, brave space to me means finding the right people, you know,
Mhm.
connecting with your people. And that happens organically when you're open to it.
Mhm.
Just like you said, it happens in aligned divine right timing. You know, you
Mhm.
find those people, connect, and when you find a place like that, you stay and you show up. And that's the other thing is you show up as you are where you're at. So sometimes we all go through the ups and downs, but if you
Mhm.
show up even when you're in those dark spaces, you'll hear something that reminds you, like, okay, I'm going to be all right. Or you'll
Yes.
hear something that reminds me, I have something to offer them, I can be of service to that person. Or you'll hear something that reflects back to how wonderful you really are, and so it helps get you out of that. So showing up for yourself and your community is another aspect of a great, safe, brave space. So
Yes. Yes, I love that. I'm so happy that you shared about the breathing and all of it, but the breathing part to me was so unique that I had never interacted with someone that after we share so vulnerably and we're releasing these heavy things and our nervous system is kind of like all over the place now, you allow us to be poured back into. You pour back in so lovingly, but before you do, you allow us to now kind of reset the nervous system and calm down and breathe and release it. And I feel that is so important because sometimes that is such a healing piece right there by itself, by allowing someone to get it out and just release it and let it go and then bring them back to peace. That is beautiful to me. I felt like that's such a beautiful technique. And I love that about what you do in that space. So I wanted to shed light on that because I think it's really, really important to show all of the beautiful techniques that you do. Because you don't just hold a space. I mean, you navigate through that space so beautifully, so caringly. It's amazing. I can't even get like all the right words for it, but it's something that it needs to be experienced for sure. So yes, thank you for that. Leah, I'd love to ask if it's okay to share a piece of maybe what you were maybe going through in your lifetime at that time when you decided to create trauma drama and the five-step healing process.
yeah. Oh, thank you. That's interesting to think about. I remember, so originally I had wanted to write a book because I had been on this healing journey for 10 years, and I had some insights that I thought would be really helpful to share. And so I thought, well, what's the best way to get my ideas and share out what I've learned? And I thought I'll write a book. So I joined a course that it was through Hay House, Louise Hay's Hay
Mhm,
House. And it was, if you take the course, then you could submit a book proposal, and one of the people from the class would win, to get their book published, whatever. And so I went into that, and it was awesome. It was a great class. I created a book proposal that I was proud of. I submitted it. I didn't win, but
oh,
in
okay.
that class, but in that class, what I learned is that they require all people who are wanting to become writers and birth a book to have a platform, because in this day and age everything's online. There's all these social platforms, so you have to have a platform. And so I got onto Instagram. I had removed myself from social media a few years prior, like 5 years prior, because of my own addictions, and it was not helpful to me at that time. And I needed to remove myself from that to heal. And so going through 12-step program, coming into a better place, having a new intention of getting
Mhm,
onto these social platforms, a
mhm,
new intention of what to do while I was there. I got on Instagram and I started sharing things out, and just a little bit here at first, kind of like learning to open my own throat chakra still,
mhm,
and just sharing these things, and then sharing on my story, and then realizing that I don't have to write a book to help people right now. I can start now And so sharing on Instagram and in the DMs, and I was very active in communicating with people that would comment on my stories or my posts. And so that's how it began. And I met a wonderful soul. Her name is Neha. She's in India. And
Mhm.
I remember we've done some collaborations together in the past. And I remember her telling me, it's time for you to use your voice. It's time for
Mm.
you to use your voice. And that was like such a big moment in this whole process, because at that time Clubhouse was starting, and I
Mhm.
got an invitation into Clubhouse, and Clubhouse is an audio only app. So using your voice, not even, visual picture or video, but just your voice. And so when I received that invitation, because, in the beginning I was invitation only, I thought, okay, I'm going to do this because use your voice. That's the message I received. So I went onto Clubhouse and I started to use my voice, and that opened so many doors because it
Mhm.
connected me to people worldwide. That was a worldwide
Yes.
platform. And you would open a room with the topic sexual abuse trauma or whatever I titled them at the time, and people who were interested in that topic, who were on a journey of their own healing around that specific topic, would come into the room and we would connect. And I have met people, I now have connections worldwide as a result of that. My Instagram following, it grew in the time that I was on Clubhouse, because I was sharing, I was using my voice and sharing
Yeah.
what was important to me, what I was passionate about, and what I realize now that I'm good at, holding that space for people to share and talk about their trauma and to be heard. And so that really just kind of like opened all of these doors for me. And then I started, so Trauma Drama began in Clubhouse. Trauma Drama, where we would come together and talk about childhood trauma, specifically sexual abuse trauma. Each week we'd have a different subtopic that we would dive into. I met some beautiful, amazing people, yourself included, on Clubhouse, and I had moderators in that room. Stacy was one of those. My
Yes.
friend Erin, Nancy, Delane, Maria. There were so many beautiful, beautiful people that would show
Mhm.
up every Thursday too. Yourself, and we would moderate that room and hold that conversation. And we did that for a couple years, 4 years, and it was very, very powerful. And that gave me the confidence and the realization that this is important. There are so many
Mhm.
people that need this type of healing, and that want these type of conversations. And so I continued with Trauma Drama after Clubhouse kind of went through its changes and COVID finished and everyone was back out there. I started doing Trauma Drama live at my local library and recording them
Mhm.
on Instagram Live. Those are all still on my page. And then I went into X. It used to be Twitter, and I did them there for a little while, and then I brought it to Zoom. And I feel safest in Zoom because I'm promising, this safe space, but on those other social platforms, it's not really in my control of what
Mhm.
is done with audio recordings. And so I decided Zoom is the best place for it. So now I hold that space on Zoom. You can find that link in my Instagram bio and join us any Thursday that you're available. But yeah, that's the evolution of how I
Beautiful.
came to this.
I'm so happy that you chose to be obedient to what you received. You received the message and you went through with it. And that ripple effect, my gosh, it's spread out so big. And I'm a part of that ripple effect as well, so I'm really happy. And it's so magnetic as well. It's almost kind of like you said, we will meet the people that we need to meet when it's time to meet them. I could remember going through such a big grief in my life, and I kept saying, I would ask the universe, what who am I supposed to go to now? Where are my elders have passed on.
Mm.
The people I would usually call for advice or, just to have some sort of inspiration or what way to go, they're they're gone. I can't call them anymore. That was my thinking then, and things just started to align so beautifully. But this is how I was aligned to meet you. I had no idea Clubhouse even existed when I first got the invite to come into your space. And I want to say, I think I learned about your space from going into Stacy's space. And I remember thinking, wow, she's talking about sexual abuse. Like, that's something. I don't think I've ever heard anybody like openly talk about this, and so it had me right away because I'm thinking, well, I've never talked about it. Nobody knows. And this is something I want to know about, like what's going on in here? Like it gives you such a sense of sameness, right? Where you don't feel alone. And you feel like, okay, if they can come in here and do it, so can I, right? It gives you like that courage of
Yes.
building yourself up and feeling like, okay, I'm not alone. Look at these people. You don't have to show up perfect. You don't have to show up like everything's perfect in your life and you have everything together. And I felt like that was so amazing. So I'm so happy that your friend told you to use your voice, and you were obedient with it because my goodness, I can only imagine, if it was such a powerful healing space for me, I can only imagine how many others you have touched in the world. And that's to me is such a beautiful gift all by itself. So I just want to keep stressing how important you are because I want you to know that. But yeah, so I'm gonna go to my next question. I know we've been talking already for a while. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. Um, what would you say to someone listening who feels called to heal but is terrified of being seen or heard?
Mm. Mm. I would say, you're not alone, because that's where we all started. That's where we all started from, being terrified to be seen, heard, to
Mhm.
show up in that space. But I would also remind you that if you're hearing this, then you're
Mhm.
ready. Because
Yes.
as we mentioned before, it's like you the you put out these signals, these subconscious signals out into the universe, and the universe aligns you with where you're supposed to be and the next right steps that you're supposed to take. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking like, oh, that sounds like you're feeling called in some way, like there's some connection, then that means you're ready. And it doesn't mean that you have to show up and tell your story right away, but it means that you can come into those spaces, because like you said, in Clubhouse, you could just sit in the room and listen. You didn't have
Mhm.
to come on this and speak at all. And you can still do that in trauma drama. You can just come into the Zoom room with your camera off
Yeah.
and just listen.
Mhm.
And eventually, it's going to naturally happen that you're ready to share, because you've heard enough, you've connected with enough people. That's the beautiful thing that happens in trauma drama as well. Like, we all are in that room together, hearing each other tell stories. And when I created that space, I wanted it to be very similar to when you go to a 12-step meeting. Because when you
Mhm.
go to a 12-step meeting, you share and nobody gives you feedback. You just
Mhm.
get to share. And I think there's beauty in that, because everyone has their own opinion, they have their
Yes.
advice, they have like their feelings about what you shared and what it might have triggered in them that they want you to hear. And that's not always helpful. And so in my space, you share and then I respond because it's my space, and because I can't not point out what's beautiful in what's being shared,
Mm.
and my reflections, and it's my space. So I do respond to the shares, but no one else responds in that moment. They can respond during their share, something that
Mhm.
this person said sparked this memory in me, and now I'm sharing. But the
Mm.
beauty that happens there is that they make connections on the side. They'll DM each other, and then they'll start. And so it's that, like you said, that beautiful ripple effect, because they
Mm.
met here, now they're connected here, and now their
Yes.
people are connected here, and their people. And I like to say it's like those maps on the commercials for cellular networks, where it's like ding ding and it
Mhm.
lights up, it's all connected. Like that's what we're
Yes.
doing. Like we're building this network of connections, and it's a beautiful thing. So I have seen that happen, that um people who sit in the room will hear somebody share something, they'll find them on Instagram, they'll DM them, they start a conversation. So that's beginning to use your voice, just reaching out
Yes.
and telling that person, I really felt that, I understood that, that was my experience too, or whatever it was. That's beginning to use your voice. And so you come into the room, you listen more, you create those little side conversations and connections, and then eventually you're ready, and eventually you want to share. And so it naturally and organically happens like that. So it happens in the right time, and it won't feel rushed or scary or forced. It'll feel like you're ready and you want to. So if you are listening today, first of all, you're here, so that's a big sign, and a good indicator that you're ready. And then it's
Mhm.
just showing up. It's choosing to show up. When we show up, we're that's a level of self-love, right? That's saying, like,
Yes.
this is something for me, like this is something that's important for me. And so just showing up is the next step. And then, like I said, you'll start those little conversations, you'll begin to do a little more, share a little more, and then when you're ready, you'll step up and you'll share what's needed and
Mhm.
for your own process in that moment. And then there are other levels, right? Like I'm still getting to new levels of being seen and heard.
Mhm.
This podcast is a new level for you of being seen and
Yes.
heard, and continue to like expand and grow. We continue to blossom like the peony's flower.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. Thank you for that because, you know, a big piece of what you said is having that choice, right, to show up for yourself. And when we're so comfortable enough with ourselves to where we start to make decisions for us instead of everyone else, that's kind of where the magic starts to happen. And you start doing a lot more for you, and you start looking into a lot of you, going without sometimes, instead of going within, just allows more chaos to kind of keep happening. And you know, when we decide to show up for ourselves, it's such a beautiful beginning, because so much happens just from that one choice. So much happens. It's taking me on a journey that I would have never imagined 10 years ago. I'm telling you, I look now at my younger self, and I look at who I am today and who I want to continue to be, and keep evolving, and I'm so proud of myself. And I'm so, I don't want to get emotional. But I'm so proud of myself, and I'm just so um happy that I made that choice to decide to love on me. Because it's so easy to it's so easy to feel unloved, and it's so easy to look for love in the wrong places. Right? I see this a lot in a lot of people that I know, and then I've even seen it in me. It's just kind of like some things that we hear all the time with relationships. It'll be like, oh, well, he doesn't make me happy or she doesn't make me happy. And, and that's it. But that's like kind of the biggest deception that we are told, that others are to make us happy. Right. And when we start to dig deep in and we start to realize that we're responsible for us and we're not technically responsible for everybody else, it's such an eye opener. And I learned so much about myself on my healing journey. I learned to go back to my inner child and find out exactly what it is that I really, really love to do and like. And, that sparked so much for me. That sparked my creativity, where I remembered that I love to create things on the computer. And it's how the ripple effect became of my children's books, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yes.
those are things that I'm just kind of like so grateful for. I look back and I'm just like so proud of me. And
Mhm.
and it
Yeah.
feels so good. So yeah, I really hope that that does inspire someone. What you said, it was very powerful, because that's exactly it. When we get to show up for ourselves, it's like the beginning of something so beautiful, that we can't even imagine. Sometimes it's funny because I think back of like when I was in like school, and I did a little bit of college and things like that. And they want you to have like this 5-year plan, right? And you've got to know what you want to do in the next 5 years of your life and things like that, right? It's nothing of what I thought it would be.
Mhm.
Nothing, nothing at all. And I'm really happy about it, and because it makes me feel good. This makes me feel good.
Yes.
This sitting here, being able to speak with you, speak to you about your healing modalities and the things that we do to give back to the community. These are the things that make me feel good. So that's I think that's beautiful. I love that you
Mhm.
mentioned that. So thank you.
I want to like just give everybody like a little visual. So, you know, inner child healing, I know that that is a topic
Mm,
that's very dear to you. And um,
yes.
so it's so when we hear someone talking about the 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 wrongness, is that a word? the um the cruelty of sexual
Mhm,
abuse, it's like the
mhm,
child inside of us who had that experience is like, they're like sitting like this, and then they
mhm,
hear that, what, somebody like somebody's hearing me, like somebody wants to hear me, and then
mhm,
so it like awakens that part of us that we've been disconnected from. The trauma disconnects us from that younger self, because we're conditioned then through the trauma and through survival to wear the mask, to show up as the ego self that's I'm good, I can handle this. And we leave that little part of ourself behind that's carrying the weight and the pain of the trauma. And so it's like, the little part of us is in there, and then we hear something and they wake up and they're like, are you seeing me now? Are you going to let me like tell my story? Like, and that's a very beautiful thing. And that's what reconnects us with our choice, because when we have that trauma and it disconnects us, it's like we're in that survival mode and we're just doing what has to be done, or what our nervous system the nervous system reacts in a way that keeps us safe in that moment. But there's really no choice. But when we start healing and we start reconnecting back with that younger part of ourself and giving that part of ourself a voice and allowing them to come forward and share their ideas and their creative talents, it reconnects us to our ability to choose. And that's a very, very powerful part of the healing journey, reconnecting to our choice, so that we're not just reacting in a way that, keeps our nervous system safe, but rather we're taking a pause and we're seeing what's important to us. Does this align with my values? Is this good for me? And then we can make a conscious choice on the direction that we want to go as we move forward. And So that is a really big piece of the healing. And it's nice to be reconnected with our choice, right? To know that we're the one creating in this life. And there is a lot of love that happens in that process of reconnecting back to ourselves. And that's what I was hearing you say, like you're proud of yourself and you're in love with yourself, like we love ourselves, because before we're taught the opposite, that we're not good enough, we're not worthy, we're broken, we're all these negative core beliefs that develop as a result of that type of abuse, and so learning to care about ourselves, learning to put ourselves first, learning to take care of ourselves, learning to love ourselves again is it's a journey in itself, but it's so healing and so beautiful because it reconnects us back to that younger part, the inner child that we've been disconnected from, and who really wants to be seen, to be heard, and witnessed and loved. And when we do make that connection, we reconnect back to our purpose, our creativity, those your beautiful books. I wish I had them here to show them, but
Oh,
um
no, it's okay.
those beautiful books, that's inner child being like, oh, let's create
Mhm.
with color, let's draw these pictures, and let's have
Yes.
fun. And um yes, and so it's a very like loving process when we're doing this healing, because we're reconnecting back to that part of ourself that carries the pain of those
Mhm.
experiences. Yeah, and it's
Yes.
it's really beautiful to have that
Oh,
choice.
yes. Oh
So
gosh, yes. So important. Well,
mhm.
Leah, this is the part where I like to ask everyone, whoever I have on or have as guests with collective conversations, if there is a question that you would like to ask me, because I ask all of the questions usually, but I also like to give a chance to have the guests if there's something that you would like to ask me that I can reflect on or answer for you.
Mm, let's see, JoyNettie. I think, okay, so when you have those moments of connecting to your inner child and allowing her to be present for conversations or for experiences in your life, what okay, for those people listening who maybe have not yet made that connection but are like, okay, that makes sense, what would you tell them? Like, speak to your inner child and tell her all of the things that you know now that you didn't know at the beginning of your healing journey, when you were silenced, when that disconnect happened, when you learned to wear the mask, and you were in survival and doing all that. Tell her what you learned, like speak to her now, and what would you tell her? What is important about this journey you've been on, and reconnecting to her?
Mm. Oh, yeah.
Is that a good one? Is that too much? I don't know.
Oh, no, 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 it's not, no, it's never too much for me now, I mean, I'm
Right,
like,
right.
but I knew, and I said when I asked it, I thought, "Okay, get ready to get your tissue."
Ah,
I knew it was gonna be deep and meaningful, which I love. I love that. That's what's important, right? To me, actually, that's what's very important, is that I'm always using my superpower of being vulnerable.
mm,
So to answer your question, gosh, you know, it took me a very long time to be able to go back to my inner child and even
mm,
see my inner child and speak to
mm,
her. And I kind of pushed her away for so long.
mm,
Um, and I smile because this makes me think of like my name that I use today, JoyNettie.
mm,
And
mhm,
you know, for me, my my healing journey has a lot to do with my inner child because a lot of my abuse came as I was a child.
mhm,
It was in my childhood, so a lot of my healing has to do with that. Now,
mhm,
today, as who I am today, who I have evolved to today, I can sit back and I'll say, you know, the first thing, because I know I don't want to skip parts, but I know some people probably think like, well, how do you even get to talk to your inner child, and things like
That
that,
is the
right?
concept. Yeah.
Right, right, yes. So the first thing is to quiet yourself,
Mm,
and allow yourself to be with you. Um,
mm,
I see a lot of people stay busy. They stay busy. They stay busy
mhm,
because sitting still with yourself does bring up things that you might remember, things that you don't want to think about, things that you don't want to even discuss with anybody else, and let alone discuss with yourself. Because that's where that mask comes in, right? You're masking everything that used to be. And I would say the very first thing is to allow time with you. And when you feel
mm,
safe enough to actually dig into yourself, that is when your inner child will arrive.
mm,
And when I felt safe enough as an adult, then I was able to feel safe enough to go back to the little me, right? And
mhm,
the very first thing that sparked me having a relationship with my younger self, um, was self-love. Learning self-love for myself was such an eye-opener. I mean, that was something that I thought never even existed, that you could love yourself, right? I thought I had to love everybody else for them to love me back. And that's what I thought I just needed to do. But when you learn that you can give yourself so much love unconditionally, and that you don't have to be ashamed of who you are, you don't have to feel that there's something wrong with you because something happened to you. You don't have to any longer feel like it was your fault. You don't have to take on the burden of thinking, well, if I would have known, I could have done something different, or maybe I could have stopped it, or maybe I should have fought back, or maybe, all of these things that we learn to tell ourselves, you can start
mhm.
erasing those. And as
Yes.
we start to erase those, your inner child is so filled with joy now because you've welcomed them
Mhm.
back. you know you haven't shut
Mm,
them away. You've welcomed them back in. And now I can look at my little self, and I don't call my little self JoyNettie. I call my little self Ebony, because my
mm,
first name is Ebony. My first name is Ebony, and I have two middle names, Joy and Nettie. So what I did on my healing journey, I said to myself, well, if I'm going to step out into the world and brand myself, it's going to be a name that I hid all my life. It's going to be the name that I thought to myself, I hate that name. I don't understand why my parents would name me Joy and Nettie. I was just kind of like, what is that? Like, I hate it. Like it was, and that was something I told myself for so many years. So when people would say, hey, what's your name? I would just say, Ebony. I would never mention the joy and the Nettie part. Um, you know, and on my self-love journey, I began to love all of me. And I said to
mm,
myself, well, I love my name. That's who I am. It's me. It's my birth name. It's what I was given. And I actually love the name now. And I actually look at it in such a different way. Joy
mhm,
to me is so important in my life. To be able to experience joy is so important to me. And then Nettie is where I found out is my father's mother's name.
mm,
And his mom died when he was very young, and he wanted me to have her name. So
mm,
when I started to look into things and analyze things, that's what I chose for myself. I said, well, I'm going to name and brand everything JoyNettie,
mm,
and that was a big piece of that. But when I go back and I talk to the little Ebony, gosh, Leah, it fills me up every time because I see myself always at maybe around the age of 5 years old. And I always can look back and I smile and I say, I love you, Ebony. I love you, Ebony Joy. And the most important thing that I tell my inner child is that we're safe now. We are safe now. We don't have to worry anymore. No one will ever hurt us in that way again. And I got our backs now. So you don't have to worry anymore. And mm, that's so that's so powerful for me because I lived a lot of my life in what doctors labeled me as having a lot of anxiety, right? And that's just fear of everything. And I know where that fear came from. I grew up in a fear-based home. I grew up around fear, and I know that I carried that with me into my adult life, that I always was just in fear of everything. And now I get to go back and tell my little self, Ebony, you do not have to be afraid anymore. You know, I got us now. Nobody is going to mess with us again. And that feels good to be my own protector. And it feels good to be able to go back and say, it's okay. I see you. I know we've been through a lot. We have been through some times, and it's okay now because we are now healing together. And I allow her to show up in my life. I allow her to be a part of my adulthood. I like to have fun. And it's funny, I was just with um the snowstorm. We just had this huge snowstorm up here. I'm pretty sure you heard about it, but we just had this huge snowstorm and the very first thing I thought was, I want to go out and play in it. And my son's looking at me like, you want to go? I'm like, I'm going out. I went and got my boots, my coat. I was like, let's go. I want to go. It's like, my inner child wants to go and play, and that's what we're going to go do. So, I allow myself to still enjoy myself and still, of course I have to be an adult and I have adult things to do in my life, but I also know that it's okay to still enjoy myself and love on me and give my inner child that gift of still being free. Because I am still a work in progress. I am still working on myself and evolving each day. And the more and more I do that, the more and more I find that love for myself that I can pour into myself. And so those are the main things that I go back and I sit and I tell my inner child, yes.
I love that so much.
Uh,
You spoke of safety, JoyNettie. Safety
mhm,
is key, right? Like, we can't begin really doing the processing of those unprocessed traumas until we've created a safe environment for ourselves as adults. And so that,
mhm,
going back to that previous question, if someone's listening and they're wondering, I'm afraid, whatever, if you're here, it's because you've created enough safety in your life
mhm.
to begin this process. And that is what it takes, right? Because it's like we hid the inner child away because it wasn't safe. It wasn't safe for her. It wasn't safe for us
That's
to
right.
have them there, and but once we create the safety, we're like, come into this safe environment. I got you. It's
Mhm,
okay. Now we can move forward. Now we can process. Now we can figure this stuff out together. So that was such a beautiful visualization that you gave to us. The sort of the process of your own connection with your inner child, and what that looked like for you, because it's a weird concept. I remember when I was in therapy and she was telling me about inner child stuff, like I didn't understand at first. I was like, I don't
mhm,
even get it. But as time goes
mhm.
on, and the more love you have for yourself, and the more you allow those memories to come up into your body, it's like that's the inner child. Those
Yes.
unprocessed experiences are your inner child, and it's still
Mhm,
stored in your body. So When you create the safety, it does allow for that reconnection and to begin the processing of all that unprocessed stuff. And it's a beautiful thing because the fun comes back, the creativity comes back, um, the excitement for life rather than the fear that we lived in for so long. We get that excitement back. Like children, they're so curious to learn things and they want to do new things and explore, and so we get that back when we reconnect. So so powerful, so
Oh,
beautiful.
yes, thank you. I love that. I feel like I can remember a time where someone asked me like, "Well, what do you do when you're not on social media and you take your social media breaks and things like that and blah blah blah?" And I'm just kind of like, whatever I want that's making me that I like and that's making me happy and
Make me
you know
happy at that time.
it's yeah. And I know it's very simple for me now to say, but it did take me a long time to get there. But what I have realized is that when I ask someone else that maybe I'm working with or someone asks me for some advice and I ask them, well, what do you like to do? And it's kind of like, well, I don't know.
I don't
And
know.
and it's very common today because as
Mhm.
adults, we kind of lose our things that we really loved to do,
Passion.
because those passions turn into like work and being a mom and or being a dad and or I got to make sure this is done or this is done, and then we can lose ourselves and go into like robot mode where we're not even realizing that we're just kind of just existing. We're not really
Yeah.
living,
Yeah.
and it's so easy to be there because I was there before, and it took me such
Mhm.
a deep depression to realize that's where I
Mhm.
was, and I'm just kind of like this is what these conversations are about for me. When we're able to break down stigmas and we're able to share with each other in communities and heartfelt safe spaces, these are the things that open the doors for that. And I truly believe that they're so needed. So this podcast is something that was truly put on my heart because
Mhm.
so many people are walking around feeling like, you know, well, this is life. This is it. I just got to go to work my 9 to 5, or just stay at home and just be a stay-at-home mom and take care of the family. That's it. There's nothing else. I'm not gonna do anything else, or I just want to stay fit. So I'm just gonna the gym. Yep, that's the gym. That's what I do. I just stay in the gym, but there's so much more of
There
who we are, and
Yeah.
these are the conversations that help people see that you can still have fun in your life. The biggest thing I feel about life is to live it to your
Mm.
fullest extent and your in your fullest potential of happiness. Because life is so full of these material things that we have to worry about and deal with. And one of the biggest things that I laugh because one of the biggest things that I've noticed is when we devote our whole lives to these jobs and the corporate world and all of these things, um, I hear people say, man, so and so died, and that's a terrible thing. And guess what? The company goes on. The company goes and hires someone else. They replace you and they move on. It might be a little thing, maybe a day or two, but after that, it's back to the drawboard,
Business.
And I feel like that's not just what we're here for. Like, yes, I know some people have passions where they experience those type of things with the corporate life and things like that. But there's so many people out here living just to survive.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's exactly where I was, at one point in my life where I felt like I was just spinning and didn't know which way I was going and and just I was exhausted, and to be exhausted with life, I feel is such a sad thing. you know? And it's kind of like I don't I don't want people to be exhausted with life. I want people to know how beautiful life is, and how much of a gift we have to actually be here and experience things and know that life is not out to hurt us. Life is not out to get us, and when things happen in our lives, sometimes there's a beautiful, well, I don't want to say sometimes because I believe always there's a beautiful gem in there for you to learn and that you can grasp from it, even when it's uncomfortable. And with that being said, I look back at my childhood now in such a different way, where I I truly understand that I am here today as who I am today because I did experience the things that I did experience. Now, I know sometimes that might sound a little strange to people, like, is she happy that that happened to her? No, I'm not saying I'm happy that it happened, but I'm also able to look at it as, I experienced this. I did survive it. I'm strong enough to know that I did survive it. I've made other choices in my life to feel like I can go and start healing for myself. And now I feel as if it's on my heart to be able to give that back to others, you know, to be able to give a voice to the other children that don't see a way out and don't see any type of escape or feel like they're the only people that may be experiencing this. Because that was always a wonder in my mind. Is it just me? Is it just me that's going through this? Even in my family, I thought, is it anybody else in my family or is it just me? Like, why is it just me? And so I think that when we are able to share like this so bravely, so openly, with love and care, um, we definitely help heal others. So I'm very grateful for this conversation with you, Leah. So
You.
before
Me
we
too.
go, please let everyone know how they can reach you, how they can reach Trauma Drama, and everything else that you have going on.
Thank you so much, JoyNettie. It is what you talked about there. I just want to touch on it for a brief moment, that
Of
so many
course.
people are exhausted with life
Mhm.
rather than
Yeah.
excited about it. And that is a truth. That is a truth. It's
Mhm.
like, people in their 40s and their 30s are exhausted with life. And
Mhm.
it's a sad place to be because it means your world has like shrunk down so small. But
Yes.
like you said, the world is so huge, and the amount of experiences and exposures that we're capable of experiencing, of having, like, they're unlimited. They're unlimited. But when we're in survival mode and we're just like living to survive, like you said, like, life does get exhausting. And
Mhm.
it really is through the healing process that we reconnect with the younger self that's excited about life, that has all these
Mhm.
desires and wants and creative ideas. It's through that healing process that our world begins to open up instead of shrink down. So,
Yes.
you know, if you're still, afraid to step onto that healing journey, or afraid to share your story, or scared of, being of experiencing it like it was when you were a child, like, remember that your world is shrinking. In fear, our world shrinks. But when we do the healing and we start that self-love and that reconnecting to the younger self, like, our world expands. Our world expands, and there's unlimited possibility out there. And we're not meant to be exhausted with life at 40. Like, we finally have the resources to like do
That's
the
right.
things. So thank you for speaking so passionately about that, because so many people are
Yeah.
in that place.
Oh, yes.
And we're not designed to live like that. We're designed
Mhm.
to create and have these beautiful experiences and connect with people and expand ourselves,
Mhm.
expand our capacity to love. That's what Louise Hay
Oh,
says, that
yes.
when we leave this experience, when we transition out of here, the only thing we take with us is our capacity to love. So in this
Mhm.
lifetime, we should be striving to expand our capacity for love,
Mhm.
in all ways, self, the
Mhm.
world, people, experiences, always expand our capacity to love. So yeah, so thank you so much for this
Oh,
conversation. Like,
thank you.
so tangents that I was like, oh, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. So we'll have to do it again and a little more
Yeah.
on these other things, all being medicated for anxiety and stuff. Like, oh,
My
there's
gosh.
so much to say
Yeah.
about that, but for another time. So, but thank you, JoyNettie, for
Oh my
giving
gosh.
her to be your first guest on this amazing podcast. Like, I cannot wait for more of your voice to be put out into the world and these conversations to be had with all the amazing guests that you're going to bring on. I look forward to it, and I'm deeply grateful and honored to be the first guest. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
I
Um,
wouldn't have it any other way.
you can find
Absolutely.
on Instagram primarily. That's the social platform that I feel most comfortable on. I am on other platforms, all under the name Leah Abraham 1111, but Instagram is my primary platform. So if you want to connect with me right away, um, in the DMs is the best way. If you'd like to join Trauma Drama, that happens on Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the link is in my Instagram bio. If you are interested in taking my 5-step healing process, the best way to know about that is to follow my story on Instagram. I will always post when I have one of those coming up. I haven't set the dates for them in 2026 yet, but when I do, it'll be in my Instagram story. So Instagram's the best place, but I am on other platforms too. Yeah, thank you so much, JoyNettie, for having me. And gosh, I look forward to seeing what this ripples out into.
Thank you. Leah, thank you so much for holding space for me before I knew how to hold space for myself.
Mm,
That's such a beautiful thing for me, and that was such a beautiful gift that you gave me.
thank
Um,
you.
and thank you for just allowing me to be me. And a lot of my evolution, I want you to know, comes from the safe foundation that you laid, because I don't think that I would have felt comfortable speaking at all unless I would have stumbled across such a safe space like yours. So I'm truly grateful for you. So thank you so much. And that is why I know I told you I would tell you why I chose you as my first guest. Well, on because I want you to have your flowers in front of everyone. Um, and also I want people to know that it's not just something that I wanted to keep hidden for myself. I want people to know that this is something that you are offering for people all over the world, that they can have the same experience with you as well. Um, because I've seen you hold people's hearts in ways that, I mean, my goodness, it's definitely a light to be shed on. So I am grateful for you. I'm going to ask you to close with one last thing. Um, if you could leave the listeners with one truth about healing, what would it be?
One truth about healing is that you deserve it. We all
Mm,
deserve healing, no matter what we've done in our life, no matter what's happened to us in our life, no matter where we are right now. I deal a lot with addiction as well. Like, no matter who we've been, what we've done, where we are right now, we deserve healing. You deserve healing,
yes.
and it's available to all of us. We just have to know that we deserve it.
Mhm.
And then, like I said, the universe will put people and situations and podcasts in right in front of you where you need it. So it's just knowing that you deserve healing.
I
Yes.
love that. Ah, and I love you. Thank you so much, Leah. I
I
so
love you too.
appreciate you.
Well,
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And I hope to see you back again for Collective Conversations mini podcast.